Well, as I talk to you today, it is the official start of the Conservative conference. No doubt we will see probably stories come out about the Conservative Party conference. Of course, um, many of you may remember, if you were joined us last year, we covered a very interesting story of a, well, what better way to put this? It almost looked as if someone from the Labour Party conference had gotten lost and wandered into the Conservative conference. And bear in mind, that wasn't a fringe event. It was actually part of the main conference. And he was talking about the fact that the Conservatives needed to do more for the working class. And of course, they haven't since then. So maybe we'll see a repeat performance of that. I don't know. Well, we'll just have to see. But one thing is definitely true: is the holiday period, the honeymoon period for Johnson, is really over, and it's hard to tell when, shall we say, the knives are finally going to take the plunge. Shall we say, on Boris, because his premiership, his days as PM, I'd say are numbered. And as we've talked about this before on the channel and my morning walks, um, you should join next time. By the way, Saturday mornings, round about 8 o'clock we start. But the two departure dates, shall we say, are Christmas, or I'd say maybe about May, April. It really depends. But those are the two departure dates, and it all depends just how much, shall we say, oomph there is in the party to get rid of him. Now, I think there will be more, especially after Brexit, because obviously, well, just like Theresa May was used as a scapegoat for why Brexit is going wrong, many of the Brexiteers can really use Boris as, oh, Brexit's fine, it's perfect, it's Boris that did all this wrong, he's the reason why Brexit didn't work. Not the fact that, it's Brexit itself, but there you go. So, obviously, on with the article. Now, hang on, there we go. So this comes from The Guardian, and I do like the title of this. So it's Carry On Coronavirus. The shine has come off Johnson as Tory conference begins. When Boris Johnson barrelled into the scrum of the Conservative Party conference in Birmingham 2 years ago, he received a welcome more suited to a rock star than a backbencher. Some breathless delegates had waited 4 hours to be part of the 1,500 strong audience for his speech at a fringe event. They cheered their hero uproariously as he condemned Theresa May's Brexit deal as an outrage that would trap the UK in a tractor beam of Brussels. This year, there will be no live audience at the conference, and the hype which has surrounded Johnson when he was the prince across the water seems a distant memory. A poll of the grassroots members conducted by Conservative Home website on the eve of the conference found that just 28% thought that Johnson was dealing with the coronavirus pandemic well, whereas 63% said that he was dealing with it badly. As the government lurches from one U-turn to another, antagonising a growing number of Tory MPs, those symptomatic to Johnson blame his powerful advisers, including Dominic Cummings, for curtailing the boosterish Boris they all knew and loved. People feel that Boris is not the Boris he was. Something has happened to him, said one erstwhile supporter. Steve Barker, the ringleader of this week's 80-strong backbench rebellion of the coronavirus restrictions, likened Johnson to Tolkien's King Theoden, under the spell of his advisers. When Theoden awakes, and I mean Boris, everything will come right, Baker said. At a recent meeting of the executive of the 1922 committee of Tory backbenchers, the feedback and the mood of the rest of the parliamentary party to the Prime Minister. Members were taken aback when Johnson arrived with a Praetorian guard of 7 aides. It was insane. One of the advisors walks up and gives him a paper to read out. It was suffocating. He's out of the hospital, but the special advisors are keeping him in intensive care. For a veteran, Tory MPs are always sceptical about Johnson's suitability for the job of Prime Minister. There is no surprise at these fumbled communications and the sense that he is not up to the top of the political delicacy of it. When asked whether the shine has come off Johnson's premiership, one former cabinet minister replied tartly, "If you drop something which is entirely ornamental into a corrosive acid bath, it tends to lose its appeal." Out in the country, Tory members and scepticism about Johnson comes despite the fact that most will have not been at the sharp end of the latest coronavirus restrictions, which have created a complex patchwork of crumbs imposed across much of the northeast and the northwest of England. Yet the bungles and mistakes are still rumble on. One Tory MP in a constituency in southern England said that his local members were often small business owners or professionals who were bewildered at what they saw as a clownish lack of professionalism in Downing Street. It's like Carry On Coronavirus, with Boris as Sid James and Matt Hancock as Kenneth Williams, he said. And for the Red Wall MPs and their local associations, Johnson remains the leader who swept them to victory last December in the seats that they hardly dare hope they could win. Many remain inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt, at least for the moment. At least. Aidan Ruff, a party member of 31 years, is president of the Northumberland Conservatives Association, which covers Hexham, Waxman, Berwick and Blythe Valley. He said that Tory members in the area have been broadly understanding. "I think most people think he's making the best of a bad job. That's the impression I get. The only grumble I've heard is the sort of people saying, 'Can we get more testing done?' Because that's obviously the key." The secondary one is probably the messaging. How lockdown rules apply. It's really kind of simple. Just keep yourself away from people if you're not well. It doesn't really need to be a lot more complicated than that. And when asked about Johnson's poor polling among party members, Ruff said, "This is not Boris's natural field of play. So I think he was always going to have a difficulty with this, the fighting a pandemic. It's a very technical thing. It's not his forte." He added that the pressure he must be under at this minute is how he can keep a smile on his face. "I have no idea. Most people will be running in circles, flapping their arms, screaming." Julian Arnold, the chairman of the Conservative Association of Blackburn, which has also endured localised restrictions, is also sympathetic to Johnson. "I wouldn't have his job for all the tea in China," said Arnold. "We made him our leader, and the country elected him as leader. But there are idiosyncrasies with Boris, you know what I mean. I do get it from members as well. That's Boris, isn't it?" Most MPs representing Red Wall seats appear equally inclined to give Johnson the benefit of the doubt, but some report that their constituencies are chafing against the latest coronavirus restrictions. "A lot of goodwill is still there," said one MP elected in 2019, but they also highlight the concerns among the Conservative colleagues, especially about the 10 o'clock curfew for the hospitality businesses, which they have described as a kick in the guts to our local service sector. This measure particularly is causing us real concerns locally. As one fellow Tory MP in a Red Wall seat told me, "We've gone from eat out to help out to drink up and piss off," said the MP. It's a real problem now. It doesn't feel like it's being applied clearly, and the lack of scientific evidence for it is also a major concern. But Sajid Karim, who served as a Tory MEP for the North West for 15 years until 2019, predicted that worries about jobs and the economy will eventually prompt the notoriously ruthless Conservative Party to turn on the Prime Minister. When asked about Tory support in Red Wall seats, Karim said, "Well, I think those MPs are going to be increasingly worried next year, because many of them have been elected for only the first time, personally, and many of those seats have been won after many, many, many years, if not for the first time ever, and their majorities are not that great. If the Prime Minister appears to be a drag on their electoral prospects, he added, they will not. They will move to remove Boris Johnson to try and protect their own position. Approval ratings can go up as well as down, and much will depend on the economic fallout from the pandemic and from Brexit. A flurry of upbeat conference announcements are planned in an attempt to try and return the optimistic mood of last December's election landslide, and the quote levelling up agenda that was meant to define Johnson's premiership. If a vaccine emerges to allow something like normal life to return, and a Brexit deal is reached with the EU to limit the immediate fallout from the end of the transition period in January, even Johnson's critics could believe that he could restore much of his lost popularity with the public. But it's hard to imagine him ever being quite the confidence pin-up he was 2 years ago. And I sort of generally agree. I really do generally agree on that. And he is right. A lot of those red wall seats, and you notice we're still calling them the red wall seats, they got in on very, very thin majorities. Very thin. And remember, this time, you won't have, you won't have, shall we say, Labour members who wanted to, quote, get Brexit done, voting for the Tories again. You also won't have Labour members who didn't want to do Brexit, voting, to try and, quote, get a hung parliament, voting for the Lib Dems this time, which primarily led to a lot of these seats because they were split. There's no Brexit party there. This probably not, but we don't know. So yeah, it's very, very telling that a lot of these guys sitting on those seats are very, very worried about their re-election priorities. But that's the other thing that was said recently. There has been a push by a lot of these MPs, these new quotes in those red wall seats, to try and get rid of local councils and authorities, because they're worried about those authorities being used to rebel against them. Because we've said this before, many of these MPs up here, they're almost directly reporting to Labour-held councils, and we've already seen this many times. I would say, if you've been watching your local papers recently, you've had the former, Labour MPs writing week in, week out to their local papers going, this is what's going on. Your Conservative MPs doing this. Do you realise the effect this is going to have? So that's massive as well. So, I said it before, a lot of these, and they are called, we'll notice we're still calling them the red wall seats, even though they've been won very, very time, for the very first time, the majorities are wafer thin. So, and they're just going to go back to Labour. So there we go. Obviously, Tory conference season is in full swing. We'll have to see what happens this week, but we'll have to see what happens, of course, as with all things. Nevertheless, there will be lots of announcements and, of course, other shenanigans and chicanery going on, I'm sure. But as always, please do like and share the video. It does help out the channel a lot. Of course, there are links below should you like to support the channel another way. A one-off donation link to buy me a coffee, and my Patreon link. I forgot what its name was then. But yes, also if you are new, please do hit the subscribe button. We do talk a lot about British politics and Brexit because, the two are interlinked, and that ain't going to be untwined for some time to come. So, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.